Alright, time to review some books I've recently read. The first book is Divergent. I don't have it anymore because it was a library copy, but y'all know what it looks like, so I don't think I need to show you anyways. And you probably know what it's about since everyone has read this book, but if you don't, just go look it up on Goodreads or something. It was a really, really long wait to get this on my hold list from the library, like weeks and weeks. But it was finally ready one weekend right before I left for vacation. And I decided I didn't want to take it on vacation because I already had another book in mind. So I started reading it the day that I picked it up and finished it a day later. I definitely liked this book. It was easy to get sucked into and just sit and read for hours. After I finished it, it was definitely one of those things where I still feel like I'm there. And I kept thinking about those characters and that world and dreamed about it and thought about it the next morning. The day after I finished it, I started missing the main love interest and missing the world. I saw myself in the main character and I definitely felt like I was there. I liked the main character Tris, although she bugged me a little bit at some points. She just seemed a little bit too oblivious to some things that were glaringly obvious to me, but it wasn't so annoying as with, like, Katniss, so it wasn't too bad. Tris definitely belongs in the Divergent category. She shows traits from multiple factions at some points, and at other points shows the opposite of those traits. But my problem is, why is being divergent so rare? I would think that pretty much everyone would fall into at least 2 of the 5 factions. But such is the setup of the story, so I guess that's the way it works. Anyways, I really appreciated the lack of insta-love and the slow build-up we got instead. I also really enjoyed the more psychological aspects of the book, and I thought the fear simulations were really interesting. And my favorite part was probably Scene 4's simulation. The writing isn't anything fancy, but it's just right for telling this story. It's straightforward, but not without meaning or importance. I think the writing is part of why I gave it 4 stars instead of 5 when I compare just the writing alone to other books that I've read, like The Fault in Our Stars or The Virgin Suicides. Divergent just didn't wow me. And I know it probably wasn't the intent of the author to have the most beautifully written book ever, but beautiful writing is what really makes me love a book. Anyways, I know that a lot of people complain that they don't know enough about why this societal structure was formed, how it led up to this, and what the other factions are like. But since we're seeing the book through Tris's eyes, I feel that we do know enough, and the explanation in the book is reason enough for me to understand. Plus, I feel like whatever they're being taught in schools about faction history is just a lot of propaganda and lies anyways. And by the end of it, I felt like I had a pretty solid understanding of what the government was trying to achieve by the faction structure. You know, it's like Rumpelstiltskin. Being able to name something or label it gives you control over it and lets you defeat it, which is why being divergent is so dangerous. The whole message of the book about why we don't fit into one label and about people giving us those labels in order to control us seemed a bit obvious to me, but it didn't get in the way of my enjoyment of the story. I'm definitely curious to see what happens next, but I won't be reading Insurgent right away. I haven't really watched any Insurgent reviews except for maybe one, so I know a little about it, but I think that in Insurgent and the rest of the series, I'd like to learn more about the other factions, as well as what is on the other side of the fence, why they really created this faction land, and what they are keeping out, or in. So again, I definitely liked it. I didn't fall in love with it, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book is the book I did end up taking on vacation. We went to the beach for a week, so I got most of the book done during that time, and then I finished the book one day later in the week after getting home. That book is Cloud Atlas. I didn't actually know this book existed until a couple months ago when a family friend recommended it to me, and she lent it to me, and only after that did I find out it's coming out as a movie. So it's kind of all still very new to me. So since this book I think is less well known, and less reviewed on YouTube at least, I'll go over the plot a bit. Basically, it's kind of like 6 short stories that are loosely connected, but by the end, the connections aren't quite as loose and have more importance and meaning. It starts with a narrator in the 1800s, I think, sailing on a ship from Australia to California, and he's writing in his diary, and that's what we're reading. The diary is then read by a man in his 20s, a young musician who we meet through letters that he writes to a friend. These letters are then read by a journalist who meets the friend the letters are written to, and so on and so on. 6 people overall, 6 different voices, and 6 different time periods. So when I started this book, it started off a bit slow for me and was a bit hard to get into, probably because of the writing style of the 1800s diary entry. It was just kind of unfamiliar to me. And then with each new person, it got more and more interesting and easier to read and relate to. Though it never really sucked me in quite in the same way that Divergent did. Basically, the book is about what connects us with our past lives and future lives, and how they influence our own lives. It kind of hints a few times that it really is past lives and shared souls between these 6 characters, which is interesting, but I think it would have been a bit more interesting if it was explored a bit more deeply. But it is done pretty nicely. Subtle, but touched on enough so that you definitely don't miss it. I mean, these characters certainly have enough going on in their lives already that they don't need this past life thing to make them interesting. It definitely is a character-driven book rather than plot because there are so many different plots. It's organized well enough so that you don't lose track of what's happening. It's actually very linear time-wise and sticks to one character at a time. And if you want to know more about the chronology of the book, just pay attention to the cloud at the top of the page. So the writing itself was very good, very diverse from chapter to chapter. I really felt like each character had a diverse voice and personality and style. You really get a lot of genres out of it. You get romance, you get adventure, you get dystopia, you get contemporary, social commentary, but it's not super long. It doesn't get out of hand, and it's definitely very neatly contained within this book. As I said in my Goodreads review, there is a lot of social commentary, especially around the economics of religion and consumerism. But for the most part, it's not really lecture-y. Sometimes it did feel like the social commentary was being pushed just a little bit too far, but only for maybe a page or 2. And like Divergent, I think the message of the book was pretty clear. I think my only other wish for this book was that the first character, Adam Ewing, had something written for him hinting at his own experience with connecting to past and future selves, because there's not really anything like that in any of his experiences. His were my least favorite chapters for the writing style and lack of connection. So as far as the movie goes, I will definitely watch it at some point. I don't know if I'll see it in theaters, but someday definitely. It'll be interesting to see how they tackled it and interpreted different things, and which things are different from the book, what actors play, what characters throughout the different time periods. I think it'll also be really awesome to see how they adapt the Cloud Atlas sextet that the second character is making into real music, and how or if they connect it in some way to each character via the soundtrack or whatever. So if you've read Cloud Atlas, let me know what you think. And if you haven't, does it sound like something you'd want to read? I don't think everyone would love it or even like it, but I liked it, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. If you've read Divergent, let me know what you thought about what I thought. It's been pretty well discussed up until now, and I'm curious if you think I will like Insurgent. So yeah, that's all for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye!